Longest minute. There we go. I call the meeting of the North Syracuse Central School District Board of Education to order. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to begin with a moment of silence for the following. Edna Standridge, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District, and Marianne Lorenz, a retiree of the North Syracuse Central School District. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with a proclamation. This is for school library media specialists. Throughout our school buildings, school library media specialists have an impact on the district's students. They have accepted this exceptional responsibility with commitment, dedication, and love. The school library media specialists of the North Syracuse Central School District are professionals of the highest caliber and have dedicated themselves to the ideals of their profession. Students, parents, administrators, and community members recognize, applaud, and appreciate their efforts to ensure students receive quality educational services. To honor the school library media specialists of the North Syracuse Central School District and their accomplishments, I, Paul Farfalia, President of the Board of Education of the North Syracuse Central School District, on behalf of the board, express our deepest gratitude and hereby declare April 4th, 2023 as School Library Media Specialist Appreciation Day, to be celebrated on April 10th, 2023 with appropriate educational service activities, If I could get a motion. Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Segru. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. And you notice that April 4th is the day that we're declaring that it's the national day, but we celebrate that April 10th because we have a break on the 4th. Just wanted, in case anybody caught that date in there.
At this time, we'd like to recognize those school librarians that are present, and we'll ask them to state your name and the location that you are working at. And Mr. Kurilla, I don't know if you want to come up here as well. So I'm going to hand the microphone, and if you can let us know what building you're working.
Hi, I'm Kelly Forsyth, and I'm at the North Syracuse Junior High, and it's an honor.
I'm Morgan Gallrap. I am at Gillette Road Middle School.
Thank you. And here's the proclamation, and thank you very much. If we can have a round of applause. Thank you. And again, thank you so much for your service.
Okay, we next have a budget update from Mr. Keegan, who's already up here. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, folks. I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent, Dan Bowles.
Thank you, Mr. Keegan. So again, we wanted to let you know what we're doing. So the presentation will focus on the impact of the 23-24 budget. Tonight, we have directors and strategic focus and initiatives. We will also continue to review estimated revenues, the tax cap calculation, initial expenses, vehicle bond proposition, vote and election information, and the budget process. But again, we wanted to have some of our district directors to come and share with you some of the things that they are looking to work on to focus the district and be in line with the strategic plan. So we have the strategic plan, and I don't want to read the mission statement, but again, our focus is graduation rate, reading proficiency, and emotional competency, and how we get there through cultural competency, our student support system, and professional learning are some of the areas that will help us achieve our goal. As we have previously, we've talked about highly inflationary environment right now. The federal stimulus aid will be ending. We've said that a few times. On 9/23, CURSA will be ending, and then 9/24 ARP. So that is going to be a challenge for us in how we get there, because with that money, we did add many supports for the entire district. The economy is at full employment, very low. So trying to find people to fill positions sometimes is very challenging for the district. We have a number of labor contracts, as you know, that will be negotiated this year, and trying to balance that within our budget is going to be something that's going to be challenging the district. And we've had years of declining enrollment, but we believe the enrollment is kind of leveling off. And again, we've been having conversations with Micron and some of the things that are up and coming to have a better understanding. And we've also, you'll be seeing an RFP regarding a proposal to look at the demographic study.
With that, Lisa Goldberg will be joining us to talk about a few of her areas. Sure, we'd like it to be kind of a just free flow conversations.
So first of all, thank you for giving us this opportunity to share all the really wonderful things. Thanks, Nate. That are happening in our district. I think I'm actually really excited not only to share the things in the areas that I supervise, but to really hear all the good things that are happening. I think we're in a really wonderful position in lots of ways in terms of our innovation, and so this is going to be really exciting. So when we talk about social emotional learning, we're talking as related to this strategic plan, the emotional and cultural competencies. In the next fiscal year, we'll be leveraging what we've invested in up to this point. And the goal here is to create welcoming, affirming, and emotionally safe environments for all of our students, their families, and our staff. And toward that end, we're going to look to leverage both research-based and proactive skills, because emotional competency, cultural competencies are one of the sort of umbrella of skills that kids will be using every day throughout the rest of their lives. Next year, we'll really be drilling down and focusing on our consistency among all of our systems. So our protocols, consistent vocabulary, consistent language and supports relative to SEL. We will go further and deeper with our restorative practices, not only on the Rocks campus, but in the other buildings where there have been some explorations and the beginnings of learnings in restorative practice. We are incredibly fortunate to have such an abundance of mental health supports. I wish I could say that there are no more mental health problems. We know that's not true, and we know that for a long time into the future, we will be exploring and acknowledging the residue of the pandemic and how it's impacted our students. We are very fortunate in that we have done tremendous work and will continue to expand the work in terms of partnering with families, community-based organizations, and the county. So when we think about a lot of the mental health supports that we have, it is through these partnerships with the county and the community, which leads me to something super exciting. And that is that BOCES will be offering next year a community schools COSER, which means that, for example, some of the community or some of the mental health programming that we have that currently we're paying for out of ARP or CURSA funds will be able to run through a COSER at BOCES. And so that's really exciting. They're going to be able to take a look at what's in place, help us organize triage and move through really shoring up and expanding the supports that are in place. So I'll stop there for any questions about SEL. Okay. So I have the privilege of also supervising social studies. And we are really committed to ensuring that every student gets a robust social studies education. And toward that end, for a long time, our district has, and I believe rightfully so, resourced our ELA and math. Without numeracy, without literacy, we're going nowhere. And I think we've come to the realization, or at least I have, that social studies is no longer a standalone, especially when it comes to elementary education and middle school. We can't silo social studies. It has to be intrinsically connected to our ELA instruction. And that really is anchored to both reading and writing proficiency, one of the goals in our strategic plan. We're currently working with a group of extraordinarily dedicated K-4 teachers on working to unpack our standards so we can establish a guaranteed and viable social studies curriculum that will crosswalk with CKLA. Because the schedule is so jam-packed and because that program is so robust, it makes sense to weave the social studies into the work that's in CKLA. And so we've started that work and it's been super exciting. We've been really fortunate to work with BOCES and that work is, I'm so hopeful about it and excited. We also are starting an approach to writing called the Writing Revolution. Please have me back to talk about that because literally I could talk to you about it for an hour. Super exciting. I think it is going to crack the code on writing for our students and writing across all content areas. So that work is taking off. I've spoken with you about our civics program in preparation for the Seal of Civic Readiness. The application is dropped from the state. We are going to apply for fall of 24 because the application's due the end of August, and that will meet a lot of the mandates in our strategic plan as well. So really excited about all the social studies work ahead as well. Questions?
Go ahead. You can go. You might have the same one I have. Well, I weaved in there and I read this, and then I just heard your words. So I'm going to show my age because I'm going to reference Hal Herber. Anybody know who Hal Herber? Yeah, I see. There you go. Is that what when we talk about crosswalking with CKLA, or then you mentioned weaving in it, are we talking about reading in the content area or something beyond that?
So
I guess is what I'm.
that iteration of the approach to the work predates me. How's that? Was that diplomatic?
I'm mildly offended.
Okay.
Yeah.
My apologies. But I think what we're trying to do, what's really fascinating about CKLA, and I may have mentioned this to you, I got to observe a second grade lesson on Alexander the Great. And the kids were like really astute about war and strategy. And so how do we begin to leverage what's in CKLA and bring in geography and bring in map skills and bring in history and make connections to our world today, to government, to all kinds of philosophies. So it's you might say it's cross-curriculum work, if you will, and integrating curricula together. I think it's reality. The reality is that there's not enough time in the day. We have to find a way to bring social studies into ELA, and so that the reading that can happen in content areas. So
what grade level was that you witnessed today?
second grade,
Second, okay.
Alexander the Great. Yeah.
I'm just curious. okay, again, another discussion for another day, probably just what that would look like in K1. I just, my concern from my very limited experience is, you know, somewhere in there, early preschool child or early grade school, you know, they have this love for reading that they have. I've witnessed it recently, as recently as last night. And I don't want to, you know, I don't see that happening with Alexander the Great, but I'm looking at a kindergartner in my world right now. So I'm just was curious how that looked, because I know it sounds great, but it's a bit of a challenge, I think, to really pull it off. That's all.
So with early primary, a lot of the social studies standards are around civics related, community building, speaking and writing, communicating. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there to read, to do some historical fiction, because I, like you, I think reading is essential, and reading for pleasure and reading for interest. But I also want to be really clear, and I want every kid to leave fourth grade knowing the difference between a town, a city, a state, a country, and a continent. And there's a lot more too, but those basic foundational pieces integrated in a spiraling curriculum, I think gives us an opportunity to do some really exciting
Well,
things.
thank you.
I'll just have a quick one. Just curious, the seal of civic readiness you said is rolling out next summer. So does that mean like the 25ers have a shot at that, or is it something that starts earlier?
That's a great question. Thank you for asking. And she's not a plant. So what's really cool about this is that there are different experiences that count for points. And so kids that are currently in our system now can accrue those points, even though we don't have the seal in place. So once the fall of 24 comes, if your student is in the system now, and let's say they're going to graduate in 25 and they're accruing points, they can get it as early as June of 25. Sure.
I am very happy that you now have social studies. You don't know how happy I am. And what you have done already in your 1 year, probably less than a year. So less than a year?
Well, there's a pandemic. in there,
Okay,
so-
okay. My concern is the civics program, and we have two outstanding teachers at the high school that are doing so much with their participation in government. They all are, social studies teachers, all are. I am concerned at the elementary level. I've seen it start when I left 16 years ago with social studies, is that we don't have the pride in our country and in democracy, and that we have all kinds of people in this country, and we need to work together to make us the best country in the world. And I feel like some of these standards are not being taught in our schools, and we need to look at this. You know, I taught second grade. Second grade was all about the community, and we learned all about the community of North Syracuse and where you live. These kids can't tell you what county they live in. They just don't know a lot about what they're in, and it's really embarrassing. And it's not just North Syracuse, it's the whole area. So I just wanted you to be aware of that.
Thank you.
So next up is our Director of Math, Nick Schultz.
Good evening, and thank you so much for giving me a little bit of time this evening. This slide tries to encapsulate a lot, so there's a lot of words on this. I think Dr. Leahy would probably tell me that there's probably too many words on this since he's our resident slide guru. In the upper right, in the dark blue, are the 5 priorities that are identified in the roadmap that I use to kind of provide a roadmap for everything that we do in mathematics. It's called Attend to Precision, and that is enhance a culture of respect and accountability, invest and retain teachers, a guaranteed viable curriculum, intervention, enrichment, and extension, and then making decisions based on data. This roadmap was created after the strategic plan to ensure that we actually had some things in place so that we could implement the strategic plan. If you read it, it's very easy to say, oh, I don't see mathematics in there, except mathematics is everywhere in there. It's within graduation rate, it's within reading proficiency, it's within professional learning. And so I thought it was important to create a roadmap to help us identify how is a 6th, 7th, 8th grade high school math teacher going to see themselves in the strategic plan. And so what I did with this slide is took those 5 different priorities and then identified some of the things that we're going to be thinking about next year. And so in terms of enhancing the culture of respect and accountability at the K4, that will probably, that the plan is to expand to the K7 level. We currently have lab classrooms being worked with John Wojcik, our instructional math coach, and he is working with a small cohort of about 10 teachers and supporting those teachers in like a feedback cycle, and really having him go in, observe what they're doing in their lesson, provide feedback, and then rethink some different things that they might be doing and some things that they want to work on. It's very, very teacher-led and teacher-driven. And so it's been very exciting for them to be a part of that. In terms of PD, I think also PD helps empower the culture and really help support the culture, because it is saying we're investing in you. We care deeply about the work that you're doing, and we want to continue to provide for your growth and your learning. If you don't do that, it's very easy to be stagnant, and then culture starts to decline. And so those are the things I think we're really identifying to enhance our culture. In terms of investing in and retaining our teachers, you guys, and I thank you again, as what cabinet and the board were able to provide money for a partnership with the University of Rochester and Dr. Charlotte Sharp last year to help support professional development for 512 math teachers. And this has been amazing this year. It's really provided some really unique opportunities for our teachers to be in lab classrooms, to see some of the work that is being done, and for them to step back, because, you know, as a teacher, you make 1,000 different decisions in a second's time. And within that, to be able to step back and watch what's actually happening and then align that to the professional development that they're getting has been a really unique opportunity. And so I would like to continue that partnership with U of R, as well as Dr. Charlotte Sharp, who has worked with our fifth grade teachers at Rocks Road Middle. I'd like to kind of expand that out. And I won't share it in this setting, but there's some kind of neat things to be thinking about with that as well as the lab classrooms, and that invest in teachers and eDoctrina training. So you've probably heard of eDoctrina training. I think it's important to think of eDoctrina as 2 pillars: the curriculum side and the data management side. The curriculum side is a curriculum repository where we are keeping all curriculum in North Syracuse. The data management side is taking over eventually Mastery Connect, which is our how we analyze and take action around our benchmarks in mathematics. So math is really the only content that's used Mastery Connect to a really extensive level, and eDoctrina is able to take over that. And that transition is happening over about a 1.5 year long period from now until 24-25, when it will be fully implemented. In terms of curriculum, we are going through an 8-12 curriculum pilot beginning next year. We actually just today had our 8-12 math committee meet with 2 different programs and resources that I thought was really great. This committee's doing some great work and just trying to see what's out there, trying to see what other districts are doing, trying to hear what aligns to the professional development that they are getting on a regular basis. And I think that that's really important. Is we're receiving professional development. Now let's look and try to find a curriculum that really aligns to the work that we're doing in this PD. And then this has been specific to some of our teachers. A fair amount of them actually over the last 1.5 years have really reached out and desiring a greater emphasis on fluency, number sense and numeracy, number sense fluency at the K2 level. And we don't really have a solid plan around this. It doesn't mean that our curriculum doesn't do it. It just means that I think that we can do a better job of assessing it and then providing a very clear pathway on how to support number sense fluency. And if we look at our New York State assessment scores in 3 through 6 really specifically, we recognize that they're struggling in number sense fluency. So that is something that we are going to start to take on next year. You'll see intervention and extension. This has been kind of an exciting things. You may have heard of MathCon, but that is, I believe that went out in the Friday memo. We had about 110 fourth grade math students who competed in a national competition. The top 10 all scored above the 85th percentile against other kids competing in this competition. So really cool opportunity to kind of hit some of those students that we may not have been pushing and challenging in the way that we needed to. And I want to expand that out. So how do we do that now at the middle school level? And then you'll see the word high school math course. There's a couple different high school math courses that I'm considering as a possibility of extending the opportunities for students in mathematics to really see it past just algebra, geometry, algebra 2, but what else is out there. And lastly, eDoctrina and really the analysis and the action being taken around our benchmark exams and continuing to flush that out. I won't read the math quote on the right, but the 512 AIS, I believe you probably know that I oversee 512 AIS as well. And we piloted a curriculum by Lexia called Power Up this year that was received very well, really is a tier 2 support. And they have kind of said, hey, we love this for tier 2. We still feel like there's a little bit of a miss at the tier 3 level. And so the great thing is Greg Stone already has some great stuff at the tier 3 level that the elementary schools are already using. They have different modules that make more sense at the 5.8 level. And so we're going to be adopting those at the 5.8 level for our AIS tier 3. I'm really sorry. I feel like that was just rambling really quickly, but I'll open it up to questions.
Again, Nick, you've been here a little over a year. I don't know exactly. And I'm real excited that you are a leader in mathematics. But not only are you a leader in mathematics, you understand children. I wish I was back in the classroom when you talked about their 4th grade. My kids would be up to the 95th, right, Dan? They'd be in the 95th. Years ago, just something to throw out there, our 2 middle schools had a competition. It was awesome. Joanne Cologne was what John is. And I don't know if you want to look into something like that. They got the 2 schools together. I always feel that Roxborough and Gillette need to get more things together. So I would say look at, maybe look at that. But I'm excited to see where math is going in this district. Thank you.
Thank you. When I went through all of Alicia Pizzuto's old stuff, I literally it was a lot to go through, and I found a picture. It was a panoramic picture, and it was a panoramic picture of the math match. It's the only picture I kept. I have it sitting on my shelf, and I've heard great things about the math match. It's absolutely something that I am interested in. I've already spoken to a couple of those teachers that were a part of it, and I'm excited about that. So absolutely.
Other questions? I have I think just a simple one. You mentioned eDoctrina you used the term taking over Mastery Connect. Do you mean it's going to replace it, or is Mastery Connect feeding into the eDoctrina?
Yeah,
it
will eventually replace it.
So we'll generate our own benchmark assessments and write in at eDoctrina,
So
put them right in there.
we have our own benchmark assessments. Right now, we put them into Mastery Connect.
Right. Yep.
All we'll do is take those benchmarks that we've already created, and they will exist in eDoctrina. It's just a different system to then manage all of the data and be able to look at all the data. One of the things that we've already talked about specifically with the K4 is it will probably be myself and John getting those in, so that it removes kind of that extra little step, especially for the K4 teachers. The 5-7 teachers, because they're math specific, they will probably be responsible for that. But at the K4 level, we will work at trying to take that load a little bit off their plates.
Thank you.
And they know that too, based on conversations with our committee.
The only thing I'd like to add is Nick and I have discussed some of the students that excelled in MathCon. We'd like to bring them here one evening for the board to recognize the students and again, support their endeavors in being wonderful math students. So we're looking at a date and we'll bring them here sometime within the next few weeks.
Thank you.
Next up is our Director of Technology, Jason Clark.
So as I thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and share some future planning with you. So I've broken up my talk tonight into two main areas, the infrastructure and the instruction. I see the infrastructure kind of as the train on the tracks. We're trying to move forward smoothly. And then the instruction, everyone inside, doesn't know that there's any bumps in the road. So I'm going to start with the infrastructure piece. So, our top priority with infrastructure is keeping everybody safe and keeping things uninterrupted. So like I said, we don't like those bumps in the road. We just want things to work. So we work very hard to, make sure that we don't have any disruption to the learning process. More and more learning and technology are becoming hand in hand. They're part of every lesson. They're part of every day. And so it's really important that we, keep things moving. And so one thing we have been doing is moving a lot of things to a cloud-based model, a cloud-based infrastructure. What that does is it reduces some of our hardware costs, but it also increases some of our annual expenses because a lot of these are subscription-based. So we work very hard to get as many of these as we can from the CNERIC, from the OCM BOCES, and leverage that aid that's available by doing so. And it's a good partnership with the local BOCES. We're also looking at, exploring, trying to consolidate some things. We're going to start next year looking a little bit more at some of the Microsoft enterprise level tools so that we can move some of our security into one umbrella and really leverage the enterprise level solutions that Microsoft has. That they've been in the business for a long time. They've got some great tools. So we're looking at moving to that and then possibly being able to get rid of some of those other annual subscriptions we have so that we're more under one umbrella. So that's the network piece. As far as the hardware goes, the Smart Schools Bond Act was great, but it was a very large influx of cash all at once. And so there was a lot of hardware bought with that Smart School Bond Act. So we're looking now that we are, a few years past where that money was available. And we're starting to, see that the one thing with technology, it's kind of like fresh fruit, it does have an expiration date. So we're starting to see some of that start to come to the end of its useful life. One of the big things that was purchased with the Smart Schools money were the access points. So the things on the ceiling that give us internet, those aren't cheap, and we've got a lot of them. So we have a plan in place to leverage some of the E-rate money that we have. We're in a 5-year buying cycle on the E-rate money. And the plan is right now to use that E-rate money to help replace the access points over the next 3 years so that we don't run into this a few years down the road when those access, so we start to spread things out a little bit now that we have the stuff here. Chromebook replacement, we're looking at, we're very, very close to the ability to be able to just buy for 2 grade levels each year. Give the students, we're either first or second grade, we're kind of back and forth on that, but first grade, give them a Chromebook for them to have some ownership of. So that Chromebook would last them from first or second grade up through till 7th grade when they exit the middle school. And then when they come into the junior high, they'll get a brand new Chromebook in 8th grade, which will last them up through graduation. So we're real close to that, real close to getting to that point where we're able to have that replacement cycle. So it's pretty clean. The same device is in the same grade that goes all the way up through. And so that's, that's something that we're really trying to sharpen our pencil on too, and predict breakage and still not overbuy and have just the right amount, which is kind of a moving target, but we're getting there. And then the interactive displays. We have a ton of smart boards and projectors, and our projectors are chewing through bulbs very quickly, and the bulbs are not cheap. What we're moving towards is an interactive display panel. Currently, we're putting in ViewSonics. So classrooms, we're taking out the smart boards and taking out the smart boards and the projectors and putting in a single unit, a interactive touch ViewSonic. Those are very large, very expensive, and it take time to install. So we're buying them in batches. And we're trying to work our way through the district to replace those as we can. Questions about infrastructure? All right, instruction. So, this is the fun stuff. The instruction is, it's very exciting. It's very exciting to be able to get some of these tools onto the students' hands and really see them start to create, really put the learning into their hands. And so, COVID saw a very quick, large flush of technology into the environment. Every vendor out there was offering subscriptions for free, and everyone tried a whole bunch of new stuff. So there was a lot of noise out there during COVID because we were just trying to keep things afloat and move forward and learn what we can. Now that we're moving past that, we want to really look at key tools that can be used K-12 that students will get exposure to and then be able to use as they progress up through, become more proficient, and try to identify some of those, key services, subscriptions that the students can use to create and really own their learning. The creativity piece is a very integral part to it. Letting the kids own their own learning is, something that these tools provide and the Chromebooks allow for, and all the technology we have. The interactive panels are great when the kids get their fingerprints all over. Those are the best kinds of interactive displays, the ones that are messy. And then we also have next year, this year we've looked at it a little bit, and we're going to start focusing more next year on it, because the following year, the New York State Computer Science and Digital Fluency Standards are in place. So the 24-25 school year is when those are going to start to be seen in the classroom, and they spiral K-12. There's some really, really good things in those standards that help build our students to the learners they should be today, and the things that are going on in the world and everything that's crazy. So that's definitely going to be a big focus in the classroom, is the new standards that the state adopted. I also work with the librarians, and I was very happy to hear that I marked in my calendar the 10th that we got to definitely pay attention to that. So I've had discussions with the library media specialists that there's interest to start getting some things into the library that help that creativity, that help that wonder, and that marry very well with the books and everything that's going on in the library. So there's a hub, it's a center for learning and exploration and things like that. So looking at, things like 3D printers, I've started to dabble a little bit with getting some 3D printers out. I believe there's one out at Cicero Elementary right now that he's testing out there. Coding, robotics, STEM exploration activities, and all that type of thing. And then finally, we really want to look at graduation and leveraging some of the partnerships in the community so that the students are ready for whatever life is in store for them after graduation. With Micron coming in, we've got a lot of great partnerships that we're going to work on. So we have Chip Camp coming up the end of June. We're very excited about, working very hard to get that camp ready for the current 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. We're going to have probably around 120, 150 kids coming here, 3 days, 2 days here, 1 day at Cornell, and really start to look at some of those hands-on STEAM activities with Micron. And then also other opportunities. We have opportunities that we're looking at all over the place to really help the students be the best well-rounded person they can be for whatever graduation, whatever after graduation they see as their opportunity, their best opportunity. So that's what we're looking at on the instructional side. Questions there? All right, no problem.
Next up is Matt Irwin to talk to us about maintenance and operations.
Thank you, Don. Good evening, everyone. So before I get into the slide, kind of just talk a little bit about some of what we just heard. So social emotional learning. So what maintenance and operations really does is set the table for our educators and for our students to be successful. It's really our job. Okay. So toward that end, we use a lot of the same strategies that they shared. We look at cross curriculum. All right. We cross train across trades. When we look at healthy and safe environments, SEL comes to mind right away. Okay. Making sure those environments are safe and that they're secure for our students and our staff are really the key goals in our operational department. So when we look at preventative maintenance up here on the slide, getting information to our teams about our equipment and our assets so that they can do the best job possible is really critical. So our focus over the last couple of years has really been to partner both with Master Library and a company called Building Maintenance Optimization Consultants to really relook at how we do preventative maintenance and refocus our efforts. Reactive maintenance is where we live most of the time. That's just the nature of having very old systems. But as we replace these systems with projects like Bear Road, like the high school right now, and all the referendums that we have in place, we need to have that strategy in place to maintain these new assets long into the future. So that's one of our primary drivers is cross-training and rebuilding our preventative maintenance program. When we look at work management, COVID really opened our eyes to what we're really good at and some of our weaknesses. So as we look at custodial work management, we're partnering with Spartan Chemical with a CompuClean and CleanCheck, two programs that they have available for staff training, as well as work management tools to workload and really look closely at how our work really ties back to our results, that data-driven information that Nick shared with us, really looking at the data to drive our operation. Okay. And you know, obviously we've got a lot of work underway from a capital perspective. Our building systems, we still have many buildings out there with end-of-life systems that we still need to maintain. We lost a couple boilers this year. We expect that that's going to continue to be a challenge for us. We'll continue to look at referendums and carefully evaluate our needs as a district and communicate those with the community as we move forward. But we've got great things going. We're really excited and we're happy to be here. So thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I just want to say, Matt, you've been here, what, 2 years now?
Almost 4.
Almost 4. You see how time goes. But since you have arrived, I think our maintenance program, my father always said, if you don't take care of it right away, you'll pay for it later. And I think, unfortunately, we've paid for it because we didn't do things previously. So I appreciate everything your men and women do. They are amazing. Whenever you go in a building, they're very friendly. They're working hard. And I'm proud to see all those trucks and when I go down Allen Road or whatever. And I think they're proud that they're part of our maintenance program. So thank you.
No, thank you, Bob. And thank you all for your support, because without the funding to rebuild the department and do the things that we've done over the last few years, we couldn't do what we do today.
Thank you.
So you might have noticed we were expecting John Rice to talk about science and CTE and Matt Conti to talk about transportation. But both of these guys got sick today, pretty ill, and were not able to participate tonight. So we've queued them up. They'll be back on April 10th to join the other directors to finish up our director presentations. Dan, before I go on, did you want to say anything else about anything? I can go through these slides if you'd like.
If you can go through the slides, I just want to say our directors are thrilled to be able to let you know what they're working on, and they're proud of their areas and the people that they're working with and the initiatives. And we want to make sure that this district is in the top tier, and it's through our teachers, our directors, our administrators working hard. So they love getting in front of you to share information. So thank you.
Obviously, we're watching the legislative process closely, and we recently got some feedback on what the legislature is thinking about the governor's proposal, and all very positive relative to the revenues in terms of they support what the governor has put forward. As we said earlier, we don't expect a significant increase in revenue due to the legislative process. There are a couple of initiatives on the table that will, I think, make things better. For example, we were worried that about $1 million of our foundation aid would be dedicated to tutoring, and what the legislature is pushing for is the freedom for schools to use that money to fund existing programming, as opposed to forcing us to use that for a new tutoring initiative. So things like that are underway. Not a lot has changed, but in the next 2 weeks, we hope that there'll be an on-time budget, and we'll have more to talk to you about in terms of revenues. Again, I just want to emphasize, we live and die by our tax levy and our state aid, the biggest contributors to our revenues. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tax cap and just point out two things. One is that you might notice the $67.41, which is our the estimated tax levy increase on a $100,000 home, is a lower number than the last time you looked at it. We've recalculated that number, looked at it closely, and we're confident that we are now below $70, lower than we were last year for a $100,000 home. And it's, again, $67.41. So that's good news for our taxpayers. Again, we're looking at for a if we go out at the tax cap, it's a 3.22% increase. It's for a $100,000 home, $2,162 a year. Again, $67.41 a year, or about $5.62 a month. That's the tax cap. I don't anticipate that will change between now and the time we ask you to adopt the budget. Regarding expenditures, we are still working diligently to hone in on our health benefits. We've gotten recently some good news, and we do anticipate that the increase that we've projected here in our initial budget will come down slightly, and we will have more for you at our next meeting. Again, expenditures, we're a people-based business. I say it every time. The most important thing we do is put adults in front of children. I think you see from the work that the directors talked about tonight, our teachers have a lot of initiatives underway working with our directors. And again, most important things we do. I want to talk a little bit about some changes to our vehicle bonding. I think we came to you last time and we proposed, again, 10 65 passenger buses, 2 special needs buses. And then we were going to ask you to support 6 M&O vehicles. We worked with Matt Irwin, and we cut that back. We wanted to be sensitive to the taxpayers' ability to and willingness to cover these costs, and so we reduced our M&O vehicles for this year from 6 to 3. Again, we're working diligently on the electrification of our fleet. There will be no impact in the coming school year of that process, but we will keep you posted as we put our plans together to begin that transition. Vote and election information, as usual, north of 41 will vote at Cicero L this year. As the board knows, we are hoping that the voters will approve the movement of that voting location to the high school. We would do it at the stadium on that campus in May, but that would not happen until May of 24, again, subject to the voters' approval. Relative to our budget timeline, today's the 20th. We had some information from our directors. We looked at the final tax cap. We talked about what we think is the final bus bond proposition. And there were a number of notices that the board are going to be approving tonight, referendums to approve the actual propositions, as well as the hearing date. On the 10th, we hope to have the balance of our directors present to you, have some more information, obviously, about the adopted budget and what the implications are to the district. And then we're going to continue to work on the budget, closing that gap that we currently have with and ask the board to consider the budget on April 17th, or consider our proposal on the 17th, along with the BOCES election and budget vote. So hopefully we've got about a month to bring this process to closure, with a budget hearing on May 2nd and a budget vote on the 16th. And that's all we really have for you tonight. Are there any questions or comments?
I want to thank you for pushing back from April 10th to April 17th, because we do have a 2 million gap here. We need to look carefully at our strategic plan and where 2 million is going to come from. You have said that we got plenty of money from the state, but they're not going to give us any more. So thank you for the extra time. I want to thank the whole cabinet, superintendent. I know how difficult this budget is this year. We think it's easy, but it isn't easy this year. And so I appreciate that you're going to have some more discussion and come back here on the 10th and the 17th. I think the 17th is the deadline, because I've been reading.
Actually, by the 18th, you have to have it adopted.
Yeah, because I've been looking at other schools and they keep saying we have to do it by the 17th. So, but thank you for what you presented tonight, and you got a lot of work.
Thank you.
Okay. Lights, please. Okay, public comment section. We have nobody signed up today, but again, I will, as always, remind the public who is here and who may be listening in that we welcome comments from the public. Here at this portion of the board meeting, we set time aside for that. Please contact our district clerk on the Friday before board meetings by 3 if you'd like to sign up. And as always, any communications you send to the district clerk can be and will be shared with the Board of Education. Board of Education committee reports. I will start with policy, which snowed out, correct?
So
Go ahead.
unfortunately, due to inclement weather. So our next policy committee meeting will now be on the 28th of March.
Okay, thank you. And legislative?
Yeah, our next meeting is in April, but I wanted to piggyback on what Don said. I think I sent to you today, or I'm sorry, our district clerk sent to you the Assembly House analysis and the Senate House analysis. It's always good when both of them agree on something. And I know Terry and Xavier and others of us are hoping for universal meals for our students in this district. And both the Assembly and the Senate have asked for 280 million. So I know, Xavier, you talked about contacting our federal, but let's wait and see. You know, the governor is one of my favorite people, but if this doesn't go through, I don't know. The other thing was that Don talked about the high impact tutoring, that we don't have to use the foundation aid for that. However, something I'm not happy about is that the Assembly rejected the extension of the retiree employment. The Senate approved it, which means people like me cannot come back and teach for a length of time. So I was a little disappointed in that, because as Jason knows, we're still looking for staff for next year, and not being able to do this, it's going to be difficult. I'm really surprised the Assembly rejected it. And that's all.
Okay, and anything on the BOCES report? I know you had it sent to us.
A lot of stuff. I'm so glad that Jason is working with BOCES on a lot of technology. We had one of the most wonderful things through BOCES. It was the 2023 Puerto Rican Hispanic Youth Leadership Gala. Met a lot of people from the city school district, Liverpool, and so forth. This is a group of juniors and seniors that are leaders in their schools, and it's a leadership institute. And they had a huge gala at the DoubleTree. And then on Saturday morning, they got on a bus and went to Albany, and for 3 days worked on legislative things that they were hoping would support what they're doing. Our school district is going to get more involved in this. Dave was there and he said, yep, we're going to do it. It's free. All they have to do is fill out an application. Annual meetings coming up. Mike, I know you love the BOCES dinners that we have. Will be April 13th. Please let Jill know. She has to send that number in.
We'll be at the Henry campus.
It's
not
going to
the
be on
Dayton.
Thompson
Thompson
Road.
Road.
Yep, Thompson Road campus, right where the culinary kids will do the cooking. Interesting. Cortland County is going to have their own Special Olympics. And therefore, they will not be coming to the CNS Olympics in May. They've grown so much, and it's a large group of students. I don't know if you've ever gone to, it's the huge tent. And it's a long ride for those kids to come from Cortland. So they're going to have their own. But the last thing I wanted to talk about with BOCES was very emotional. We had a president of the board, Ann Wright, for over 35 years. She was president, and she passed away a year and a half ago. And we worked hard to set something up to my mind goes blank because I can see her. So we have a memorial scholarship, $500 that Colleen Vigiano presented along with her two sons, daughter-in-law and granddaughter, to a adult ed student because Ann just loved the adult ed program. And this year it went to, if you got it in the mail, the BOCES catalog, to a young lady that was in the HVAC program. So that was our meeting, but you also received, I didn't want to wait on it. You had a list today from Jill of all the students that we have in the CTE program, STARS, and all the programs. If you have any questions about this, let me know. But North Syracuse is probably the leading school district sending students to BOCES, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Bowles.
Thank you. This past Thursday, I had the opportunity to go to our spring musical, and I can say, bar none, we have some of the most talented students in the county. It was absolutely amazing. They performed Thursday, Friday, and 2 shows on Saturday. And I can't even tell you how much, as far as the acting, the singing, the dancing, just the memorization, the work that these students have put in, it's just incredible to see. So again, we should be very proud of the talent that we have in this district. Also on Saturday, Winter Guard was at the junior high. We had our younger students, 6th grade to 9th grade. And then we had the JV and varsity go on. And again, we hosted probably no less than 15 school districts, even one from Canada. Our parents, our community was out there cheering them on. I just am impressed because I couldn't throw a sword and these rifles and catch them as proficiently as they do. And they make it look so easy. But the parents were just thrilled. And I did get a notice from a Beeville parent, and the quote she sent me, she said, "Thank you for a great event. Your students did the school community proud." So other districts are seeing things that we're doing for our students and what our students are doing when they're just doing those activities. I also met students and families while I was there. So there were future students that were young, a 5th grader and a 5th grader from Gillette and a 1st grader from Bear Road. And their parent was there watching, and they were just proud to be there. And Mr. Crabtree mentioned the Special Olympics, and we've been meeting with regard to Special Olympics. And one of the things that's happened, yes, it has grown quite large. And what's starting to happen is we're hosting, but not as many school districts because it almost gets a little too large to manage. So what we've been doing, we've been meeting and kind of laying out a recipe. So we've given them timelines, things that we've done so that people can recreate that in Cortland and in other locations. And so it's going to grow, but other districts are going to take on some of the work. And then sometimes we might, one year it might be us, another year it might be another district, but they've been very appreciative to looking at that model. And I think that's all I have for you. Oh, one more, sorry. The highlight of the week, Lisa was talking about different things in social studies. I received pictures from a teacher and it just made my week. And they were learning about kings and queens in kindergarten. And they sent these wonderful pictures with kids in crowns and they were all dressed up. It was kind of the culmination of the lesson and they were just thrilled to learn and be part of it. So watching them be that enthused and the teacher be that enthused was very special. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Board of Education comments.
I do. Actually,
Sure.
late last year, I had mentioned that through the organization I'm deeply involved in, MDRT or the $1 Million Roundtable, every other year I'm allowed to apply, or members are allowed to apply for a grant. Typically, the grant size is about 1,000. There's a handful that go, and just a handful that go up and above $1,000. And I had asked Stephen Ritz, who I've mentioned before with the Green Bronx Machine, and he brings in hydroponic schools, a lot of them to food deserts or food insecurity areas. And that application was approved and we received $5,000 for Stephen Ritz. He said that that money will come directly wherever I would like it to go. So I talked to Dan and we are looking now at Roxborough Elementary, correct? The elementary, yes. And with that, Stephen Ritz said that whatever it takes to get that going, he will put in his own foundation money above and beyond the $5,000. And what that will do is it will bring fresh vegetables to the kids in Roxborough. And if they overgrow that food and it's more than the school needs, Stephen Ritz will then, he designs this program to then send food home to the families. And if there's a surplus of that, it can go out to the community. I know that Maddie Dale has been very hungry for, excuse the phrase, for a garden in the area. And this is actually doing exactly what the community has been hungry for. We have to come up with a plan. Stephen Ritz and the Green Bronx Machine has to report to how that money was used. So we need to come back up with a plan to submit that back to MDRT. And I was a few minutes late today because I just got off a plane at 5 o'clock. This afternoon, I have an ukulele next to me. It's actually signed by two famous ukulele players, those that have played with Shaka Khan, the Eagles. Yeah, they're a pretty big deal. And through the MDRT organization, I am involved with the Kanakapila Project. And they bring ukuleles to kids in underserved areas or hospitals. And we were in CS 55 is where Stephen Ritz is principal in the Bronx. It's the poorest school district, I believe, in the country. And where we delivered 31 ukuleles to that school. They had 6. That meant that only one grade could play the ukulele. Now, any grade that wants to will be playing the ukulele. And we did that through those two organizations. So the two gentlemen who who signed this ukulele were a part of that too. So we brought in world famous ukulele players from Hawaii to play for the kids. And along with that, all the musical equipment that was on stage, the microphones, the keyboard, the stands, music stands, everything that was on stage was donated to the school as well. So it was a very impactful last 4 days. So, and most impactful, we are getting over $5,000 for this area to bring in hydroponic plants.
Well, thank you. Other comments? Yes, sir.
Can't top that. Festival of Nations Stand was up at the high school on March 9th. I want to thank Kimberly Rice, I think associate principal at the high school, was kind of the getting it together and so forth. What I enjoyed about it is they had the entire school district ENL programs, whether it was CNS, the junior high, Gillette, Roxborough Middle, and Cicero Elementary. These students are so proud of their countries and their culture. I know, Dan, you tested some of the food. I didn't have a chance to do that because I went before. But when you ask these students when they arrived, a couple of the students arrived like 5 months ago. And so our ENL program's amazing, but I think this is an awesome program that we had. Musical, this one I think was in it. It looked like her. Her daughter's a twin, but it was wonderful. I have, well, another good thing is, I don't know if anyone realizes, but Lori Cook's daughter, Jessica, a former Nick would like this basketball, girls basketball. They are playing Tennessee right now at 6 o'clock. They won their whole, Toledo won their conference and upset the team that they were playing. And now they're playing one of the best girls teams, Tennessee. So I know Lori is very proud and she should be, but that's a CNS graduate playing for Toledo. I am concerned about something I read in the paper yesterday, and that's the homeless. When I see that we have over 100 students that are homeless in our district, it just hurts very much. We have so many students that have two parents and they have things but we have students that don't have a home. Upsets me very much. Now, I know some of them spend the night, it's not Salvation Army, but rescue mission, and we go and we bus them and we bring them to school. This is awful in a country like today, the United States of America, that we have these kind of people that are in our school district. It just, I would think maybe we should talk. Donna Marie probably is the one that knows more about this. I think the board should see some kind of presentation of what is being done to help these homeless students. I know, Mr. President, we have some evaluations that have to be done. I know you and Michael need to be doing an audit of our, can't help me out, Don. What's Sue? Claims auditor needs to be evaluated by the board. Usually it's the audit committee, and then they bring it to us, and then we have to do an evaluation of our district clerk, the entire board. So I don't know how you're going to do that, but I just want to put that in the back of your head that needs to be done annually. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I want to do it now. I don't want to wait till we vote for it. I am so very, very pleased on the board docket tonight on action items and voting that we are going to put on the ballot in May that this board will add a student to the Board of Education. It is long overdue that we are doing this. We talk about we want to be the best in the county, or we want to be the best. But when other school districts have this person, a student from their high school, usually their senior class, it's time for North Syracuse to join. I went online, spent a lot of the weekend looking at what Liverpool, Beeville, and FM students do. They're amazing what they bring up at the board meetings, and they feel like they're part of the board. They will not get to vote. They will not hear our our discussion, and are discussion off camera or whatever, but they're going to be part. And I want to thank the students that came to me over the summer and asked for this. So I feel what we're voting on tonight is something special. And I wanted to read a quote, and I know our president would know who this is from. Some men see things as they are and say, why? I dream things that never were and say, why not? Why not have a student on our board? Robert F. Kennedy. Thank you.
Thank you. And other board comments?
If I may,
Yes, you may.
I will be brief. I would like to echo Superintendent Bowles' comments regarding the musical. I would personally like to thank the production team led by Renee Frontali and Kimberly Panic Edwards. They are second to none.
Can I add to that also? Because again, I agree with this too, and Renee and Kim, and it's amazing how professional these guys are, but also 4D, like Mr. Nadler and 4D, which is the tech crew. It's amazing what they do with sound, with lights, with it, the whole thing comes together. So I just wanted to give those kids a shout out too.
Okay, and just lastly, a brief comment because Mr. Crabtree brought up the idea of a workshop retreat last time. So I was going to have, I've talked to Superintendent Bowles and Mr. Maurizio. I'm going to have the board polled. Was going to put a bunch of dates, but in talking, since we have a brief meeting on the 17th, I was going to just, you don't have to answer now, see the board's thoughts on extending a workshop time on the 17th of April, since you have a brief meeting to adopt the BOCES budget, to consider our budget, and we also have scheduled a public hearing. So you'll see that email in the next day or two. Don't you have to do it yet? I'll contact you probably tomorrow. Okay, other comments? Seeing none, I'll move to routine action items and look for a motion to consider the approval of the minutes of the meeting of March 6th. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. That is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Motion, please, for items B, C, and D. A motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Ms. Kruger. Those are the consideration and classification of disabled students for in-school, preschool, and for home instruction. Those three are before us. Any comments, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Item E, the contract award for the emergency boiler room renovation. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. F, motion for the contract award for the enrollment demographic study. Motion from Mr. Maurizio, second from Ms. Kruger. That is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Discussion action items A, a resolution to approve the additional proposition for placement on the ballot for an ex officio student board member. So that's A, motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Okay, that is before us. Any discussion? All right, I have just brief discussion, and I'll make sure I know exactly what we're doing. Based on Mr. Crabtree said, this is the board's agreement to put this forward. And we have to have the voters weigh in on this as to whether or not they approve us going forward with this. From that point forward, then, my understanding was we still develop a policy on this. Correct? Or the policy is just going to guide the procedure? Okay, I'm just looking. Yes. Okay, so I got a yes there. Mhm. So I just want to make sure my understanding was the understanding of the board, because I know we discussed this under legal last week, but I want to make sure that's where we are. Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. Motion for B, please. Resolution to approve the additional proposition to change the polling location as discussed earlier. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Agru. Any discussion there? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And that is carried. And C, a motion for the seeker resolution, approve ballot propositions for May 16th. Motion from Mr. Moody Woosick, second from Dr. Kramer. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. D, the notice of the public hearing and annual meeting of the voters. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Kruger. Any discussion there? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. If I could take E and F together, these are the non-resident tuition rates for 22-23 and the non-resident health and welfare service rates for 22-23. A motion, please. Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Those two items are placed together. Do we have a discussion, questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Motion for G, declaration of marketable and non-marketable surplus. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Mr. Thorne. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That item is carried. I'd like to acknowledge the following retirements. Robert Luckenbaugh, school bus driver, retiring with 5 years of service, and Bernadette Thurston, school bus driver, retiring with 25.5 years of service. Again, I thank them for their service, wish them a long and healthy retirement. That's, they're the first ones to greet a lot of our students in the morning. And as we know, they're a commodity in this market these days to get good quality bus drivers. So thank you. Personnel report A, please. Motion, place that before us. Motion from Mr. Marizio, second from Mr. Moody Woosick. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And B, support staff. Motion to put that before us, please. Motion from Dr. Kramer, second from Ms. Agru. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that is carried. And administrative personnel report C, a motion, please place that before us. Motion from Ms. Kruger, second from Mr. Marizio. That is before us. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Thank you very much. I'm going to make a motion for executive session. I'll ask for a second. Motions to move into executive session for the purpose of reviewing one legal matter, no action to follow. To receive an update on negotiations with the directors and middle managers bargaining unit. And to review two personnel matters with no action to follow. Okay, that motion before you. If I could get a second from Mr. Marizio. Any discussion? Additions, deletions, concerns? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Motion for adjournment, please. Motion from Mr. Thorne, second from Ms. Agru. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, we are adjourned. 7:17. Thank you.